been, I don't remember how long it's been, and I'm speaking kind of quiet. Hopefully, picked up still. All right, cool. Sorry if this video is quiet. It's gonna be pretty self-explanatory. Well, that's the right word. um, as we go through it, it will be. If the volume's too low, sorry. It's just later in the day. I really wanted to get a video today. My roommates have gone to sleep, or lights out at least. A slight pause. It's because I'm clearing my throat and getting over a cold still. So yeah, let's get to it. What are we working on? Well, we're working on just a couple tips for generic visual effects. We use the word generic a lot in these videos. It can mean a lot of things. In this instance, we're just going to have this simple effect here. What I did, you can see in other videos where I make these sort of disc-shaped meshes, and then we slide the UVs. So basically, put that there. Have the UV over here. Rotate it around. And we're sliding these values right here. Here, UV offset, as it's called. And yeah, then I just do a bit of a fade out here. Curve just looks like this. Oh, come on. Not a very good representation. It's actually taller. There we go. And, you know, fast in, slow out. That, as you know, I like to have a little extra pivot here if we need to make some adjustments. And then we have this here, and then like the actual parent where the animator is. And in a previous video, you know, we made this little VFX control thing. It'll help us deparent when we want, and we won't get it into this video, but we'll have some other things we can do with it. Yeah, then you just drag it down here, make it a prefab. As for the texture, just looks like this. Again, if you're not familiar, generally what I do, start with a shape like this. Do inner glow. Remember, outer glow actually adds opacity. I say that like every video in its length. But then grab the smudge tool. Actually do shape dynamics. It can sort of blend between the two. And that's a little bit too big. This. And then just start smudging the heck out of it. And we start actually making some shapes, and then because we have shape dynamics, you know, we can change the size here. I'm gonna try and grab these midtones, pull them down. And then I'm actually gonna go and darken some stuff. Burn tool. Give us more definition on like the edge here. And you can see it looks, you know, like that. A little bit different. Let's just general sense of what we do to make that. If I do clear my throat or cough or something, I'm sorry. I know that can be really obnoxious, but mic's picking us up still. Okay, hopefully. Make this video short. There's some things that I've implemented here that we're going to cover in the video after this one. But to just touch base on it, basically, in our scripts, made it now so we have an arbitrary number of parameters. By default, we had just one here, just a value here. We just call that variable. But now what we're going to do, we're going to have an arbitrary list of parameters, and that's going to be set in the script, but also per event. Because the script itself is going to be read-only, and then the event is going to be us, you know, how it's still read-only, but it's it's going to change depending on the event, and that's sort of the core of what we're getting at in this video. So our parameter class is just a name and a value. There's a new class there too, so we'll go ahead and go to our data. And if we go to our scripts, so we have this global prefab one that we've done before. And now we've set the parameters to 10. And so what we want, at least for this one, is just a way to modify it. And in this instance, we're going to have just all of our transform stuff plus the animator speed. So you could make these actually say position. This was just faster. And this isn't going to show up quite yet in our actual events. Like I mentioned, we're going to get that into the next video. This is just a quick tip on how to save a lot of time using generic effects. And yeah, it's basically about saving time. Yeah, position, rotation, scale, and then speed. So if we actually go to our character state, right now it doesn't actually update it automatically. We go to our global prefab here. I've just set this, and you can see like the names and stuff don't show up, but they are doing things. So how we did that, it's very not generic. Data, I forget what the script's called. There it is. Okay. So we pass a few new things. We pass the state, I call it act, it's actually state. Rename that. And then the event. And that just gives us a way to look at that without passing like a lot of data. We just pass a reference. So if we don't want to do that fancy stuff, we'll just pass -1 until we check that. So if state is -1, then we do this new fancy stuff. Basically all we do, take our local position, rotation, and scale. We modify it by these values. So the first 3 parameters, 0, 1, and 2. The script, this event. Makes out the position, and then we do it for rotation and scale. Rotation, I like Euler angles. Do quaternion.Euler. We do quaternions straight up. I doubt anyone would want to, unless you're like some sort of brain genius. You could do angle axis maybe, if you're like also super genius, but like it's actually the most intuitive for how I think, but actually getting it to work in Unity is a pain in my opinion. Scale. So how we actually do is we set our current scale to vector3.scale. And that'll just scale it. It's just an easy way to do it if you're not familiar. So yeah, there's also a little bit of adjustment here. Where we actually parent it. This was more of a mistake. It was parenting to the game object, but if you recall, we actually have this sub character object, and that's like our actual rotations and stuff, and that lets us have like an offset for doing visual effects, not just like rotations and stuff, but some other things. So yeah, and then down here we already had an implementation where we look for our animator, and so we do that same check. The state doesn't equal -1, and we pull up that event, and we set our animator speed to that 9th parameter. So again, this part has to be hard-coded. It's so specific. I'm sure you could do some sort of reflection type stuff if you're super fancy. And I hope to learn that sometime, but we'll just do this for now. Sorry. Alrighty. And if you don't recall from before, basically the script itself, core of it, looks at our global prefabs, which is another list we have in our core data. right now it's just our hit effect and our slash effect. And these are just duplicates. So we pass that index, and the parent object, the one that's sort of calling it. When you're getting hit, it's like the victim, and when we do some of our other effects, it's like on the the character event who's calling it. So then it just takes that prefab and instantiates a new one, and we rotate it to orient with the character. So let's finally get to it. And so we have chain 2 here. There's chain 1. It was like on frame 8. That'll be a good starting point. Event. And in our next video, like I mentioned, we're going to implement this better, and we're also going to clean up our event editor. We're going to make it fancy like this, like our move list editor. It's going to be awesome. This new event, your global prefab, go down here and again set parameters. This is going to be automatic in the future. Just really trying to get over this cold still scratchy throat. So for recall, this is speed. You actually don't have to label it in this instance, but if the speed is 0, then it's just going to pause and it'll never finish. Scale needs to be 1, because if it's 0, it'll also be invisible. And then our default parameter that we've used in all of our other stuff is actually the index, and we're going to fix that too in the future to make it more clear. Go ahead and do that. We have our first slash here, and this is one I've actually modified. So if you recall, like our initial one was more of a circle, but I've changed the timing, changed the angle, and changed the scale to make it fit this animation. So if we do our second one, you can see what our default one looks like. And this is another reason why in the past I just did new prefabs for each one, because you can just duplicate the prefab and then change the default location, rotation, and scale and things like that. And that works. It's actually covers a lot of your bases, but this gives you even more power, and it's easier to modify. You're not like deleting whole prefabs and messing around down in here. That you can just mess with like variables and stuff. It's really nice. So our scale is already kind of whack. So just from knowing, triple that. Pretty cool. And I like that sort of shape of the other one. The Z. This is the last one. Sorry this is so abstract at first. It'll make more sense. Oh, now we have that more of oblong shape, which I think is bad A. And kind of in a weird spot. We could make it huge. So one of the problems with having these sort of weird angles, like scales, I think it looks dope, but certain angles, it doesn't look as good. That's one reason, like in Bayonetta and things like that, you'll see some real big shapes that like really circle the character. Not only does it just look extreme and cool, it helps a lot with these different angles. I still prefer the sort of unique shapes and stuff. I think it looks really cool. So we know of our X, Y, and Z position. So let's push that forward a bit. Go 2, boom, boom. So now that's forward, just like the other one. And now need to fix the angle, and haven't worked on the other one. I already know that the X rotation. So let me rephrase that. The Z rotation. So how the rotation works. Of course, we have our X. So we know that X is like this way, but the rotations rotate around it. So even though the transform X is like this, the rotation X is like this, right? You just have to keep that in mind. It's going to depend on the different prefabs and stuff. So what we're hoping to do, we know that the attack actually, or the effect happens like this. And so simply all we want to do, go like this. And I know in my previous one, I just put it at 45 and it matched perfectly. We'll just do negative 45 on the axis. And then we'll do some other adjustments, maybe with the Y, and the X and stuff. It gets a little complicated when you start layering it on there. So just do your best, honestly, to get it with one. Or you can set it up like this. Sort of rotate it how you think might look good. So maybe it is some weird angle like this that looks really perfect. You have something like that. And then just remember those. Excuse me, remember those values. Do that the same. So, gonna negative 45 on our Z. Down to chain 2. Location, rotation. Take a look at that. So already that's pretty hot. And you can see it lags a little bit, so let's go ahead and step through it. And we can change the start time, but we can also change the speed. So you may like that. You may want to start it a frame earlier, which I think actually will look pretty good. You can see it's lagging behind pretty good. So right now it starts at 10. Start a frame earlier. That looks really good already. And it's a bit slower than the initial one, but I kind of like that. The animation itself is a bit slower, like the character animation. But let's go ahead. Maybe try the speed at 1.1. I'll go ahead and put it at 2 just to show you that it is actually working. You can see that went away really quick. Kind of checking my angles here too. That looks pretty cool. Also, full disclosure, I spent all day just making animations for this, and then I realized it was like really late. So we have a lot of cool new attacks. But the point was to have some different, animations for this to show off the generic stuff. So at least for tonight, let's go ahead and just do that final hit there. So to refresh my memory, our grounded chain. So it's chain 4. So we're going to go ahead and do that all over again. I don't know, let's 15 or so. It's a slower animation. And this will be a good one to have a slower speed. So it's gonna be cool. Make sure we got something going for that. Yep, that was still really slow. 25. Seems about right. Probably a little bit too slow, maybe 20. Maybe 21, just because 20 is probably best. Okay, let's do 20. Like before, go ahead and just. He's bigger, and this is a big attack, so we're gonna. Make that bigger. We did negative 45 before. Let's go ahead and do negative 90 just to start. But I also want to tilt it down on the X, you know, sort of forward, pitch it forward rather. I don't know if negative's going to go forward or backwards yet. So yeah, go ahead and do positive 20. And that's still pretty tiny. It looks sick though. Right. Scale of 4. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I actually want to do the push the Z a little bit. And you might realize that like that's getting kind of annoying. So for now, let's just go ahead and do this. Now we just have one button. We can test it out. That looks sick. Pretty happy with that. I don't necessarily like the elongatedness of it. I'm gonna go. Try this. Seems like it's coming out a little early too. Let's go ahead and check that. Sorry for bumping the. Yeah, that's a little bit early. Timing's nice though. One I'd have to mess with a lot. I could see liking it going early and going later. But that's really hot. In Citadel Deep, one of the features is you can customize your sort of weapon trails. So that's another thing you could set in there. If you want to get real crazy, and you know, you'd have to script it in here, but it wouldn't be that hard, is that you could scale, this is one of the reasons why we have this, you could scale this as well. Actually it'd be a little bit hard because we scaled this initially. And what I'm getting at is that you can do things like this and then rotate the pivot and you can see how much the shape changes. And so when you do rotations inside of a scaled situation, we can change the shape a lot. So you can get things like this, generally just using a sphere. Excuse me, like an ellipse will get you the shape you want, because this is basically an ellipse, but there are some cases, certain effects and things, where you might find that useful. But just being able to control the location, rotation, and scale actually does a lot. And then we've also done the speed. You may want to be able to control the deparent frame. I don't even know if this is implemented yet. Oh, I think it is. I think we've messed with it. Certain effects might look better, even like even in my own game, or my own game, in the actual game I'm working on, you know, get these weird edge cases where like 90% of the time, you know, you want to deparent right away. I mean, there's a few effects or, you know, instances where you don't. I mean, it could be nice to have control of that, you know, per script. Not per script, per event, you know, per state event. The time here. It's only 25 minutes. Go ahead and do maybe one or two more. Pretty cool, y'all. Seems looking way better. Just proud of that last animation there. Sometimes you just do animations that take zero time. It took like no time and turned out really good. And then some others. Fix that. Took forever and still don't quite look very good. This one's almost there. The timing's just shitty. Lousy, excuse me. I have this like flip kick that I really like and its timing's really bad. So let's go ahead and do this one. It'll be more of a unique shape, so. I believe we just called it launcher. A few frames before the impact. Generally, it's going to depend on your effect, but generally it's like 2 frames. So 17, it's only 1 frame. We'll see where it takes us. Same thing here. And we'll also implement defaults. And we'll go ahead and not kid ourselves and start with 3 and not 1. We know what it's doing. So it's going the wrong way, and it looks cool anyway. Position, rotation, go ahead and do 90 on the y-axis. Oops. Might have the effect I was hoping. Because I need 180 degrees, if y'all have completed geometry, 10th grade or whatever. So I could see needing this to be a lot slower. Although we're looking like, oh, what's it called? I wanted to do the Japanese name. Gosh darn it. Fudge. All I can hear is Senpuretsu-san, but it's like Ogetsu-san, something like that. Anyway, Homaru's uppercut. It's moon uppercut. It's like crescent moon cutter or something like that. Yeah, I did say moon anyway. Getting tired and it's really unimportant, so let's think a bit. Definitely want the y-axis bigger. Let me check that timing too. We might need to do some more rotations. Yeah, we may want to, and this is where it can get a little difficult, where you want to sort of maybe start it a little bit differently, and we can do that with the x-axis. We step through. So that looks a lot better. But if we scale it out, it's going to be scaling like this. And we may want to, you know, we may prefer to scale it straight up and down. And so that's one of those things I was talking about over here. Where having 2 transforms that you can scale can really get you some next level stuff. But generally this will look okay. If not, better than good enough. pretty huge. Let's see where that takes us. Makes it really snappy. It's so big. Actually, a little bit unexpected. It's not quite the effect. Go ahead and try. Whoops. Got ahead of myself. So we can see that we can also slow down the speed. That's a little slow. I feel like it's starting in a weird time too. I mean, it seems about right. I could see starting in a frame later. This might look bad, but we'll see. I think that does look better, but I think we want to speed it back up. Actually, whoops. Put some walls in. That looks pretty dang good. We may want to like push it forward a bit. Maybe push it up a bit. Way bad. And then it doesn't really wrap around the character. That kind of looks bad. Go ahead and hold off on that for now. Actually check the front. And she goes pretty straight up, but we may want to angle that. Sorry, I have to think a bit because we've rotated it already. Might be a little bit tricky. Might be one of those cases where, because like right now we can't just take the z-axis and turn it since we've already rotated on the y-axis. If we do this, who knows, maybe it'll work. Okay, it super worked. Oh my god. Dude, I have so much trouble with that sometimes. Another thing you may want is like to sort of have some control over the animation itself. So you may want the like the UV start and end to be a little bit different. Just trying some different things. And there's just going to be times where you need to make a new effect. But I think it's a good place to stop. I was hoping to keep it under 30 minutes. I think we probably went over, but and some are going to just look good right away, and some you're going to have to work a bit. That one just looks dope. Nice if we could make this one a little bit taller, but again, it's one of those things. Look, if we go right here. Because of the implementation, we're scaling kind of like this. And it would be nice if we could go straight up and down, but... And you could make... In fact, in Aces Wild I did this. instead of keeping it sort of perfectly offset like this, I actually had my generic slash effect for everything sort of offset like this. And so whenever it was scaled, it always gave weird shapes. And it kind of was more interesting that way. Just something to keep in mind. But we're working in 3D, and we have much more knowledge than we did in our past, so we're going to take it to the next level. But that about does it. Just check that time. 35. Cool. That's about what I thought. Support has been great. Feedback has been great. I want to work on incentivizing the check the mic real quick. Okay, good. I'm a little worried because I'm speaking softly. Sorry about the volume and the coughing and everything. I'm working on incentivizing like the lower level Patreon stuff. If you have any ideas of things that you would want, generally it's to support what we already do here at Culture Attack. So the backer rewards are a little tough. So anyway, but if you do have some good ideas, let me know. Again, the support's been great. I really appreciate it. Please let me know you'd like to see in videos. Unfortunately, like I don't know, maybe I won't even do a video on it. Maybe I'll just update the editor. Have that available. Have the updated project available to download. And then, stick to the fun stuff. Definitely want to get into some enemy stuff. So we can do some dodges and things like that. So yeah, but let me know what you'd like. Please do consider supporting what we do here at patreon.com/culture attack. It would mean the world to me. If you have any questions, let me know. Sorry for all the likes and I will never change. Thank y'all. Really appreciate it.